the News Channel 5 network, this is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. 30 states across the country allow some form of medical marijuana use to treat ill patients. Well, Tennessee joined that list this year. Help explain the legislation is the bill's main sponsor in the House, in the General Assembly, Representative Jerry Faison. He's a Republican from Cosby. Representative Faison, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Pat.
Now, everybody talks about the bill as medical marijuana, but the title of your proposed act this year is the Medical Cannabis Act only. Now, why is that? You want to get away from using the word marijuana?
Well, marijuana is kind of it's a slang term that's been used all the way back to a guy named Anslinger, who brought the whole prohibition mentality and brought this whole reefer mentality and the reefer madness story, if you will. And
medical marijuana is not what you do here. It's not smoking it. It's an oil primarily, and it's more cannabis than it is actually what you'd call marijuana.
Pat, it's vastly different than street weed or a dime bag or an 8-ball or smoking a bowl. Those are the things that we hear and conjure up these images. But what I'm bringing to Tennessee is vastly different than that. What I'm bringing to Tennessee is something that is a regulated industry, that is lab tested, and that's predictable.
It's not a street drug.
No, sir.
Well, one of your problems is that so many of your opponents, and these are people that are elected officials, and this is the people in law enforcement who say, well, we don't want to do that because it would sort of promote a gateway drug, and people see marijuana as a great gateway drug to go and start using cocaine and start using other medication, other drugs. You're trying to get that completely away with that with how you're naming this bill this time.
Well, let's speak of the gateway theory. Okay. I hear this. Jeremy, it's a gateway drug that you're doing. It's a gateway to alcohol, it's a gateway to meth, it's a gateway to heroin, gateway to crack. And I look at them and say, absolutely, this is a gateway drug. But I want you to understand what we know, what evidence-based medicine shows, and what time and time in each state shows this is a gateway drug. But it's a gateway out of addiction. It's a gateway out of alcohol. It's a gateway out of opiates. It's a gateway out of heroin. When we allow some very sick Tennesseans who have pursued whatever reasons to help themselves, they can get away from pills that are killing us. You know, you've seen opiates, what it's done to Tennessee. Every state who's passed this, opiate problems drop 25 to 30%. Well, that would be a huge boon for us.
So why are you having such a tough time convincing law enforcement across the state? It's a split. It's not like they're all against it or all for it. Why are they split on this?
So we have some very wonderful law enforcement officers. I go to church with some, and a lot of them will quietly look at you and say, hey, keep it up, Jeremy. You're doing the right thing. But there are some of our Sheriff's Association guys, some of our Police Chiefs Association guys are mad. And I think some of them have a reason to be mad from the standpoint that the federal government has refused to act. That's one of our problems, and they say, Jeremy, we're supposed to uphold the laws.
They take it out in Tennessee on you and with your bill. I mean, they don't have anything to do with the federal government.
And some of our friends in law enforcement refuse to look at the evidence-based medicine of what we're providing and that it works. But as time progresses, and each one of your listeners call in, and they call to their state representative, call to their senator, reach out to their sheriff and say, listen, I'm not a thug, I'm not a criminal, I have Parkinson's disease, and this works for me.
There's a whole list of diseases that can be helped in terms of pain reduction more than anything else.
This is an amazing thing that your listeners need to know. The National Academy of Sciences has released a study that say we know that cannabis works on inflammation. It's nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory. Ask your doctor next time you see him, Doc, what is the #1 killer of people? He's going to tell you inflammation.
Now, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is not the presiding officer in your chamber, but in the Senate. He's also a pharmacist. He's been on this show, and he uses the gateway drug argument for being against it. When a pharmacist says that, that also makes people think twice as well. Who's working on Lieutenant Governor McNally to change his mind? He keeps talking about there's some kind of research or something he wants to see. You're acting like there is research. Has he not seen it yet?
He is being constantly, every day, made aware of more and more things that science is proven to us about this plant. Interesting thing about the pharmacists are in the middle of surveying their pharmacists in Tennessee. And the initial reports back is that the pharmacists overwhelmingly agree with what we're doing. And we put them in the bill. And I think in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see that the Pharmacy Association as a whole backs what we're doing. And when that happens, the Lieutenant Governor is going to see more and more of his colleagues say, you know what, there's a reason to build this foundation in Tennessee.
The current governor of the state, Bill Haslam, is also one of those who said, wait a minute, this is a gateway drug, we don't want to do it. Who's working on the governor, and what will persuade him about that?
It's a great question. Thank you. So I took Dr. Bob Ramsey from Merville, and I took Dr. Brian Terry from Rutherford County. We went to see the governor 2 days ago, and we spent some time with Governor Haslam and laid out why this is the right time for business reasons, why this is the right time for sick Tennesseans. And the governor said, you have offered me a compelling reason to rethink this. Now, he hasn't got back with me, but when the Governor Haslam looked at me in his office and said, Jeremy, you've offered me a compelling reason to reconsider what I've done.
So you think the governor may be rethinking his position?
I do believe that. And he told me that 2 days ago. And the Speaker of the House, Beth Harwell, called me yesterday and said, Jeremy, the governor told me on the phone last night that y'all offered him a compelling reason to rethink his thoughts. So I can't put words in the governor's mouth, but I do know this: he's one of the best governors this state has ever had, and he relentlessly pursues things to understand exactly what's right for Tennessee. And we've offered him a foundation why today is the right time to do this.
Let's talk about the candidates for governor, one of whom will take Bill Haslam's place next January. Only the two Democrats are in favor of what you want to do.
Well, Speaker Harwell's in favor of what I'm doing.
I understand she has an open mind about it, but you think that's going to be supported?
Oh, she's in favor of what I'm doing.
Diane Black, one of the leading candidates, is against it.
So listen, Diane Black said she would veto the bill, and I just want to look at her and say, Congresswoman Black from D.C., do you realize that the overwhelming majority of Tennesseans, 78% of Tennesseans, agree with what I'm doing? Before you say you're going to veto something, remember at the bottom of our bill, it says the public welfare requirement. Which it
says at the bottom of all bills.
Right.
Yes, yes.
And so, listen, anywhere you go in this state, people in Tennessee are ready. They say, bring this here. We have a sick aunt, we have a daughter, we have a son, an uncle, a dad, a mom who has cancer, who has cerebral palsy, who has AIDS. They need this plant, and Tennessee's ready for it.
So there are other members, there are other people running for governor. There's Bill Lee, there's Randy Boyd. Are you going to need a road trip or some kind of dog and pony show for them as well, the way you've been doing with the governor? I mean, you seem to think it's working with him. Would it work with these others? Is that what you're going to have to do? Because obviously you've got this kind of discord in the governor's race. It's going to be harder and harder for you to get the legislature to act this year.
One of the problems we have in politics is some people care more about what they perceive the public to think than what the truth is. And I would encourage your viewers to look for people who don't care as much for polls as they care about what the truth is. And that's what Speaker Harwell's doing. She has done her research. She will openly tell you what Jeremy is pursuing is right for this state.
Let's take a break. We're talking with Representative Jeremy Faison. He's the House sponsor of the medical marijuana bill, although this year it's being known as the medical cannabis only bill. Back to continue our conversation after you watch these messages.